Thank you, Stu. Yeah. How's everybody doing? I'm glad to see you here. I see familiar faces that show up every year. You know, next year, because this is going to be an ongoing thing, make sure you bring somebody else. And the following year, bring two more somebody else's. Because the way this thing works, we have to do it on a community level. We can't do it alone. I represent the East Harlem COAD, Community Organizations Active in Disasters. We were formed 3 years ago following the Lower East Side gas explosion. We experienced it at East Harlem. However, it was the one down in the Lower East Side, that really showed us what response was all about. The difference in the response time. That uptown, it took 8 hours before we got a service center, but downtown it took 45 minutes. And we took a long look at that, and people were saying, well, that's what happens in poor and indigenous areas. I said, no, that's what happens when a community comes together. That made the difference. The community responded. LES Ready, Lower East Side Ready, they knew the different agencies in the community, so they were able to immediately reach out for a service center. They were immediately able to reach out to the library for the ongoing 17-day operation. They were able to reach out to this organization for care packages, and that organization for feminine hygiene products and for baby products. That's what it was. It takes a community. It's not just children that take a village. We need a community action. And so at that point, the East Harlem COAD decided we're going to be the change that we want to see. And we began to reach out to all the different organizations. And after 3 years now, we have 15 coordinating agencies that work along with us, along with NYCEM, along with the Red Cross, Salvation Army, and other agencies, Department of Mental Health and Hygiene. And all of these agencies are now coordinating with us for a rapid, immediate response so that we can disseminate not only information but resources. Find out who's got what and disseminate it. Get it done. Create our own resource center, our own service center for the immediate response. Now, NYCEM may decide to take it someplace else for the ongoing operation, but that immediate response is what we need. I'm a firm believer in it's how somebody is treated in the first few moments after disaster will determine how they recover overall. So we're not only talking about the response, but we're talking about resiliency. We're talking about building afterwards. How do we strengthen ourselves? How do we come back? We come back together. We do together what we cannot do alone. We are definitely as strong as our weakest link. And I encourage everybody in here to focus on yourself first, but then you're going to need help. Because there's going to be times when we are going to actually be on our own and it's up to us. But before we get to that point, we need to reach out to other people. We need to prepare ourselves first. Don't prepare me if you're not prepared. It's like coming to my house and feeding me and your cupboards of beer. You need to prepare yourself. That's why we're talking about the go bags, preparing those go bags and being ready to go. It pains me when I hear people saying, I keep thinking about doing it. But I'm going to tell you, the one thing that we do as a CERT member, we immediately respond to the shelters, the service centers. And it is disheartening when I'm sitting there looking around the room, usually every time I go to a service center or a hurricane center, evacuation center, I'm looking around the room at people that heard my spiel more than once. And they're always going to do something, always should have done something. I'm saying get busy now, because the life you save may be yours. When you go out into these places, we don't want you to have to go to a shelter. But if you have to, that go bag is vital to prepare you. Because once you get there, first you got to prove who you are. If the police knock on your door at 2 o'clock in the morning, because emergencies are going to happen. We don't know what, we don't know when, we don't know how, but we can guarantee you they're going to happen. Fires take place, that's the biggest emergency across the city. So now if your building has to be evacuated 1 o'clock in the morning, somebody's banging on your door, what are you leaving with? Nobody's going to give you a chance to run back into one room to get your purse and run back into another room and get your medicine, because the first responders, to thine own self, they have to be true. Their life has to matter first. They don't have time for you to run all over the place. They have to get you out, because the thing is to expediently get you out, because it's their lives at stake. So we're suggesting that you put that go bag together. Get started today, because it may happen tomorrow. And when I see people roaming around in the shelters saying, I should have, could have, would have, it's a difficult process. Because first you got to prove who you are. I may know you, but I can't prove to anybody that that's who you are. Now you got to be able to prove that you live in that building that was evacuated, that's now ready to be re-inhabited. Now you got to prove that you live in that building. I'm not going to break the door down just because you say you live in 10E. You got to be able to prove it. You take medication? I take Lipitor. No medical professional is going to give me medication just because I take it and lose my license. That's why these bags are so important. Personalize it. You're getting a starter kit. Personalize that bag. Put your information in it. Everybody in your family got to have their own bag. If you take care of children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, everybody needs to have their own bag, because you don't know if it's going to happen when your grandchildren are with you. You have a pet? Pets need to be prepared too. Fido needs their own bag with their flea medicine and the little chew toy and everything else. Pets are now welcomed into shelters. I'm also, in closing, a member of HEN. Want to introduce one of our members, one of my colleagues, Bob Ponce, who is our lead guy, one of our lead guys in HEN Harlem Emergency Network radio team.
First of all, let's give a hand for Carol Johnson. But for her commitment to this community over the years. Now, Carol Johnson was a speaker at the first Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day 6 years ago. Can you believe this is the 6th Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day? She was on the bill then, and she's still coming on strong. And when we see Carol, it's like, okay, I'm not ready yet. So we want to give credit to the people who've been there. Ramona Ponce has been here since day one. Obviously, we talked about Stu and Angela and the people here at WHCR. Also want to mention Doug Frazier, Stu's business partner, who, I don't know if you guys, listen, I've been coming to every year to these things, and I learn something every year. So the thing he talked about the app where you can turn your cell phone into an FM radio, it's Next Radio is the app. And so if you download that Next Radio and you have a set of earphones, you can immediately turn it so your phone is now a radio. Even if you're not connected, even if you haven't paid your cell bill, you can still use it as a radio. So what does that mean? That means in the event of an emergency, you can still tune to 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, and that's where you want to go. So these little things, the little things that you get from these events will help you. So this is all about the power of working together. Power of working together, and it's not about doing a plan, it's about having a planning mentality, because you need more than one plan. You need a plan for going. That's your go bag plan, and that's your plan for where you're going. You need a plan for staying. If you have to stay in your house for 72 hours or a week, do you have enough food? Do you have enough water? Do you have enough medicine? So the whole process of planning mentality is all about basically, okay, so every one of us knows somebody who, when they go to the day at the beach, day at the park, any type of event, they bring everything, right? They've got the hand sanitizer. They're the ones who have cups. Everybody else brings a bottle. Nobody has the cups. Nobody has the bottle opener. That one person has them. They have the napkins. They have the knives. They have stuff for the kids. They got a deck of cards. That person has the planning mentality. So for emergency preparedness, it's about taking that type of mentality and then asking the questions, what happens if this happens and I don't have the things that I come to expect? I don't have power. I don't have communications. How do I handle food? How do I handle transportation? If you take that mentality and ask yourself those questions, that's how you come to the answers on how to be prepared for an emergency. And this is the living embodiment of it right here.
Bob. And one last thing I want to share with you, what's happening now with Daphne, disabilities and functional needs. You know, we run into a lot of different people. I use walking devices. I use a wheelchair, a motorized scooter. And, you know, we need people to understand sensitivity. You know, it's funny, the people that I run into that know least about functional needs, when I'm in a medical facility or when I'm in a senior center, you know, where they'll say, well, you can't get through here and you can't get through there. Ma'am, can you just walk back there? You know, sometimes walking back there is a matter of 2 or 3 blocks. You would think that in a medical facility, if somebody sees you in a wheelchair, the first thing they would assume is that you possibly cannot walk. And if you can, you can't walk far. And see, I had to do exercises. I've been here many times, so I know there's certain floors. If it's too hard, too soft, I can't operate on them. But I've been here a few times. This floor is Carol friendly. You know, so, and then you're going to have people who can walk, like I can ambulate, not every day, not all day. You're going to have people who's going to have hearing disabilities. Don't yell at them. You know, people assume that if somebody doesn't hear well, I'm trying to tell you, then that's stupid. They're hard of hearing. Speak directly to them. Speak succinctly. Form your words. Look in their face so that they can read your lips. Don't mumble. You know, you see someone who's blind, don't grab them. I'm going to take you across the street. Be sensitive. Ask them, ma'am, get their attention. Don't tap them and scare them. You know, get their attention, ma'am. Can I assist you across the street? You know, and you don't grab them. If they say yes, they'll show you how to take them across the street. Or they may say, let me take your arm. See, a lot of times people don't realize, you take my arm, you're not helping me. I'm the one that has to have the grip on you in case I go down. You taking my arm, grab my arm. You taking my arm the way you want to. If I lose my balance, you just broke my arm. You know, it's a possibility you could break my arm. So what we're teaching people now is how to be sensitive to different people's needs. You know, be patient when somebody's getting on the elevator or on a bus, in a wheelchair. Everybody can't ambulate in and out. I try to be careful. I try to be respectful of people. Anybody who see me in my scooter, they know I drive mine like a Mack truck. So I usually get on and off the bus as soon as I can because I want people to get on with their day too. But be careful about the way you treat people in those situations because it's me today. It could be you tonight. Not tomorrow, but tonight. That's how I ended up in it. I went to bed and I woke up the next day and I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up. And it could be you. So be careful when you're dealing with people and be respectful and have empathy. Not sympathy, but empathize. Because we're all going to end up in a situation with somebody who has some type of dysfunction. And we just have to be patient and just be kind and just realize it could be me. It could be my mother tomorrow, my family member. And I would want them to be treated the way I would want to be treated. Thank you so much for coming out. Keep coming to these events. We need you to spread the word around the community.
So how do you like your go bags, people? Have you looked in it? What's inside your go bag? Sanitary gloves. What else? Flashlight, batteries. No batteries. So what are the things that you have to The thing about a go bag, when you get a giveaway go bag, it's not complete because you have to personalize it. I should make Carol come back here and talk about personalize it, but she's already headed back. So what are some of the things that you have to put in your go bag in order to personalize it? Your medicine, your lease, social security card. Probably you want to have copies.
Your insurance
Yeah.
policy. You
Yes.
put all that in there.
Yes.
But I have mine together anyway.
Right.
So
So now, how do you have it in there? Do you just have a regular copy of it, or did you laminate?
I have the original there, and my children have a copy of
Okay.
everything.
So, when you're putting stuff in a go bag, there's a number of ways you can keep that information. One way is to get the copies and laminate them. Mm-hmm. Now, lamination is something you can go to Direct Print or Staples or something like that. And what that does is that it keeps it from, if it gets wet, it's not going to be damaged. And so that's another way of having those documents in your bag. Yes.
Also, you should have copies like of bills, anything with your name on it, like that has your address.
Right.
Because if you ever like have to leave your apartment and you want to get back in to get something, you have to be able to prove that you live there. Mm-hmm. And also if you have a pet, take pictures of Fido because you want to be able to prove if you get separated from your dog that it's your dog.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many people? Now, we used to always remember everybody's phone number. How many people remember the phone numbers of all the people in their family now? Yeah, we got a 3. But most people nowadays, they just remember that they push the person's name and that's it. And so the thing is, you want to have a hard copy of your contact information. So, yes. A battery to recharge your phone, very important. Very important. So we become so dependent on the phone, and the first thing that happens, if you run out of charge, all you have is a little brick in your pocket. So you want to have a charger for your phone. You want to have chargers for your batteries. You want to have hard copies of the people who you need to contact so that if your phone is out, you can still make a phone call.
And you need a contact location. You know, if you live in a building and your best friend lives in the building, I don't need that. And your best friend lives in the building, you don't want somebody downstairs because if you can't get into your building, then they can't get into your building if they live downstairs. So you want somebody, maybe you lives in another borough. Make sure you have an out-of-town contact. Anybody that has children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, people that you babysit, kids that you babysit. A plan needs to be made with those children. Something happens and that child comes to the building and they can't get in the building. What preparations have been made? You need to take your grandchild, your niece, your grandniece, whoever, to Mr. Bob's Pizza Shop, 3 or 4 blocks away where the kids hang out, and introduce yourself and your child. Mr. Bob, if something ever happens, can my child come here and wait for me until she makes contact? Now, if that child has a cell phone, which mostly all kids have cell phone, if not for only emergency reasons, you let them know. When you get here, if something happens, you get here, you call me. If you don't get through to me, call Aunt Sadie, who lives in Jersey. Because remember during 9/11? That was 17 years ago, so we've moved on. But things will get worse. That child needs to be able to make a contact. It may have to be somebody out of state because our circuits are overloaded. And they call Aunt Sadie, Aunt Judy in Jersey or Connecticut. I'm at Mr. Bob. Was it Mr. Bob? Mr. Bob's store? Thank you. Mr. Bob's Pizza Shop. Mommy calls. I tried to call Mommy. I couldn't get her, but let Mommy know I'm here. That woman is going to try to get to your mother, but at least somebody knows where that child is, where you can meet them. Practice emergency evacuations out of your apartments with that child. Make it into like a little game. When I say a certain password, you're gonna run, and if it's a fire, you're gonna have to crawl to the door. You're gonna grab your little bag, and we're gonna get out. Involve your family in the plan, and be prepared, like Bob said, to change the plan. You need a plan, a plan, you need a backup plan, you need a backup plan to the backup plan. You have to always be thinking in terms of escape and saving your own life, whatever works best for you. Yeah, but it's personal, according to the people. And one more thing, you got people in your house who use mobility devices. You have somebody in your home that's oxygen dependent. Make a plan with the landlord. Let the landlord know, grandma's in my house. She's oxygen dependent. She's bedridden. Something happens, she needs to be evacuated out first. If there's a storm, she needs to get out of that house first. Contact your police precinct, your fire department. Let them know. My grandmother, Rosa Williams, is in my building, 1515 Park Avenue, apartment 10C. She is oxygen dependent. We need to make sure you know that. So if something happens in this building, you can get her out. So I'm done. Thank you.
So who are you responsible for? You're responsible for, first and foremost, for who? Yourself, yes. And when you go on the plane, they say when the oxygen mask drops, you take it first, then you help the person. Because if you're not in a position to help, you can't help anybody else. You need to know about the other people around you. If you have children you're responsible for, if you have older adults you're responsible for, people with special needs, you want to help them with that planning process in advance because they're going to have more challenges. So even you hear the Category 4 storm is coming. As soon as you hear about it, you've got to start to prepare if somebody has disability needs, if somebody has special medicine needs, because once you're in the middle of an emergency, you may not have an opportunity to go get those things that you normally want to get. So you've got to think in advance about those things. Now let's talk about communicate. Oh, okay. Our borough president is here, Gale Brewer. I'll give you. Okay, all right. Welcome. We're always grateful to see her, who's been here from the very beginning and always supporting the issue of emergency preparedness in our community. Now, what I was going to say is let's talk about communications during an emergency. So we all have one of these, right? So during an emergency, what happens, the phone lines can get overloaded. In 9/11, once 9/11 hit, you could not make a cell phone call. You might be able to make a text. You might be able to get a text out when you can't get a cell phone out. And so what you have to do is that you have to think about every means that you can use to communicate with somebody. You might be able to get an internet connection somewhere where you can't get a cell phone connection, which means maybe you need to go on Facebook and message somebody. Maybe you need to send a tweet. Do whatever you can to get it. So you want to think about these things in advance. That's why what Doug told us before was so important about being able to turn your phone into an FM radio with an app so that you could tune into the radio if the cell phones are down. So even if the cell phone system is down, as long as the radio is broadcasting, and WHCR will be broadcasting in an emergency, they have a backup generator. So you want to be able to tune to 90.3 FM if something really happens, and you want to be able, you can do it on your phone. If you don't have an FM radio with you, if you don't have a hand crank radio at home, use your cell phone. Also important thing for your cell phone, how many people know how to use the flashlight on their cell phone? We got like 3, 4, 5. We should all learn how to use the flashlight on your cell phone. Why? Because it's a flashlight, and you might need a flashlight. And so that's one of those basic things that it's always going to be with you. So learn to use your phone. Find the youngest person in your family that's got a phone, and they'll be able to teach you every little thing that you didn't know about it. But make sure they show you the basics. They'll go, oh, that's easy, whoop, 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 and then they'll show you. And then you go back to them and say, okay, now do that again, except 3 times slower, and we'll do it again. And then you learn, and you'll have a nice interaction with the young people in your family, but you'll learn a specific skill that's very, very important, because these little things are going to be the things that make a difference for you in an emergency.
Yeah, but if you take your cell phone battery out like you suggested and there's no electricity, it's going to be a little charge up your phone with no battery, I mean, if there's no electricity.
Well, that's why you also can look into things like there are little solar devices that you can get that you can charge your phones with. And so there are a number of different ways where you can prepare yourself to have emergency power. So I'm going to give a quick plug and then get off the stage. One is that we're doing an event, Harlem Emergency Network, 7 Survival Priorities for Houses of Worship. It's this Saturday, September 15th at the Mount Zion AME Church, which is on the corner of 116th and Madison. And we'll be talking about the 7 survival priorities, which is food, water, shelter, health and medicine, power, communications, and sanitation. Health and medicine is the most important one because you want to live through the disaster, correct? I need a little bit more enthusiasm about living through the disaster than that. And the second thing is that we do survival skills trainings every Wednesday. So if you want to get a list of our schedule, please make sure you sign our mailing list. And on that note, I'll turn it back over to Stu.
Okay.